Here with National Director of Scouting for 247 Sports, Jerry Meyer, longtime McDonald's All-American voter. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here at Ball is Life. Jerry, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between high school evaluations, what you would see in a high school setting, and what you maybe would see in a grassroots AAU setting. We're here at the Tarkanian Classic, so obviously this is a high school setting. Why don't you talk a little bit about that from your perspective?
You know, the two venues are different, and you're going to see different things. It's a different context, and context is always critical when you scout players. I don't know that I so much look for different things,
Sure.
but different things will show up. You know, for example, a player might be a go-to number one option for his high school team, whereas on his AAU team, he might be the fourth option. You know, so you get to see him play a different role. Other teams will be structured differently. You know, I hate to say that with, all high school ball is more structured than AAU.
Sure.
Because I think that's kind of a fallacy that's out there.
Correct.
I think, maybe in general,
yeah.
maybe in general it's true. But, I've seen some highly structured AAU teams and also seen some high school teams that just sort of roll it out there.
Ragtag, correct.
So, I hate to avoid too many generalizations.
Correct.
But I guess the more context, different places you can see a player play, a more well-rounded scout you get on them.
Correct.
So it's valuable to do both of these. I think a camp situation where they're just all a bunch of individuals and they're on a team with players they don't even know, I think you can learn a lot watching a guy play in that. So some guys are going to be better in certain situations. You see them in all of it. It helps you see their strengths.
Got it. Do you ever see where a guy may be dominant in his high school setting, like you said, as the number one option, and then you want to maybe see that if he can do that with an AU team or a camp setting, and he kind of either wrinkles or shrinks, and you're like, whoa, I thought he was a little bit, more of a dominant or go-to guy. Now I see that he may be more of a role player.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a great, exact example for that.
Sure.
But I think, you have some players that can only thrive as number one options.
Correct.
Then you see him, say, in a travel situation, AU situation with better players, and they can't really play in that third, fourth option. Well, they better be careful what college they choose. And again, we go back to context because, if he goes to, say, a smaller school where you would have like a number one type role,
Right away.
he's going to have a lot better career.
Correct. He's going to thrive.
And then you find other players that, like for example, Braxton Key, formerly Braxton Blackwell, is going to go to Alabama,
Correct.
plays for Oak Hill. He's a guy who just pops into my head. I saw him recently.
Correct.
I think he is a great player in that third or fourth option offensively, who is sort of a jack of all trades, glue guy. He just knows where to be, does a good job defensively guarding different positions. If Braxton were to be put in a position where he's the go-to scorer, I don't think he's as good. I think his value drops, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense.
So when he went, I think he looks better at Oak Hill, even though he plays lesser of a role, because I think he's more of a, quote, alpha role player than he is an alpha lead player.
That makes sense. And at Oak Hill, there's other great players around him, and he can kind of thrive or see the role he's going to play in at a college level.
Yeah, I think you get a great scout watching him with Oak Hill. You watch him a year ago with his CPA team. I don't think you get a great scout because he's not going to play that role in college.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the grassroots setting, maybe the pace of the game. Like you said, there's a different type of style where a guy may be thriving more athletic, but what you might see in a high school setting, like you said, it's generally a little more structured where a guy plays a little half court. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's not a shot clock like here in Las Vegas, not a shot clock. So it changes the dynamics of the game and what you might be looking for.
Well, it certainly does. AU ball, they're not going to blow as many whistles. They got to get the games in. I think they got to be 1 hour, right? We got to keep it moving.
Right.
So the game's not officiated as tightly. That can affect players different ways. But I guess as a scout, you just have to have an understanding of the context you're looking at, but you get a better view of how a guy is going to deal with physical play if you watch them in an AAU setting where they're not going to blow the whistle as much. High school, you probably are going to get more screen set. So you get a view. Yeah, how does a player move without the ball? How does a player defend off the ball? does a player, and how does a player defend in those situations?
Jerry, talk a little bit about, now we're talking about national rankings, player rankings, where you may see so much emphasis going to the next level in college. Do you look at your 247 rankings now? This is your rankings, not necessarily the composite that you guys do, as how the player is going to project 5 to 7 years from now, or is it more what you might see in this first college game? What is
Sure, yeah,
more
great question, and it's one that needs to be addressed because there are obviously, as you pointed out, well, there's different methodologies to ranking players, and for me personally, and for what we call it the top 247, which is just my personal ranking for 24/7 Sports. The way I look at it is I'm trying to judge the value of a player, how he's going to stack up over the course of his career.
Gotcha.
So it definitely rules out the first game, hopefully.
Correct.
Right now. So so just a general way to put it, 5-star players. Yeah, I'm thinking NBA. And I'm trying to think, how is this guy going to fit in to the environment, the style of the NBA game?
The rigors of the NBA game.
Right.
Correct.
For like a top 50, top 100 player. I'm not saying that player can't make it to the NBA because we see that all the time, but I'm projecting him more over the course of a college career.
Correct.
So, in general, we are talking like 4 or 5 years.
Makes sense.
That's kind of if you want to put a year's time on it. So, for example, Scout Labasiri right now struggling mightily. Well, maybe he was overrated.
Sure.
We don't know yet. But yeah, right now it looks
Small
like,
sample size.
you can't help but think maybe so.
Sure.
But on the other side, I never thought he was going to be physically and mentally tough enough to handle it right away.
In the SEC, correct.
And he might not be in college long enough to really find out how he would handle the college game. We might not know till 4 or 5 years later when he's in the NBA. But the jury's still out, and the jury to me is out on all these guys. Because we could talk about guy after guy who they didn't look good at first, and then all of a sudden they look good, or guys who look great at first and then they peter out. So it's not an exact science. That's one thing. That's for sure.
Sure about it.
And I've done this 13 years, and I learned pretty quickly you're going to be wrong a lot, but you just try to be consistent. You try to get better at it, and I think consistency is big. I want someone, when they look at my rankings, they at least know what I'm trying to do, and you try not to repeat mistakes. You try to recognize, am I overranking a certain type of player?
A certain tradable
Right.
player.
And you got to pay attention to the college and the pro game. And the pro game's changed. When I came into the business, it wasn't a point guard's game.
Sure.
Now it's a point guard's game. So hey, I have Trevon Duval, number 1, in 2017. I don't know if that'll stick. We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But if I'm not sure, I'm going to lean to the point guard position. Just the nature of the game right now.
And we're going to watch Trevon Duval here at Targhini
looking
Classic
forward to it.
with Advanced Prep International. So that's always good, like you said, to get more evaluation, different settings. Obviously, we've seen him on the UAA circuit earlier this summer. Speaking back that, you said the 4 or 5 year time frame. Just want to ask you a few more questions.
Yeah.
It seems to be so much emphasis on a freshman. Ben Simmons getting so much publicity. If you look back the last 10 years, or about as long as you've been in the business, National Player of the Year has been a freshman a few times, 3 or 4 times. Where you got Michael Beasley, Kevin Durant, Michael Kidd-Gill, Chris and Anthony Davis led UK. They were at that tier.
Right.
And it looks like Ben Simmons is a shoe-in front runner for National Player of the Year. Do you think maybe that's a little too much? Seems like emphasis, like you said, on the freshmen, and people kind of forgetting about some of these guys that may be good, potentially good, solid or role NBA players, and they kind of get lost in the wash as a 3rd or 4th year college player? Or how do you view that?
Well, I view it as it is what it is. To be honest, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong or a value judgment to make on it, but the fact is, the best players, in essence, are made to play in college.
Correct.
So there were years before the one and done rule where we didn't have to worry about this because those guys went straight to the NBA. The other thing is, your major media drivers, ESPN, number 1, then Fox, whoever's showing college games, CBS, Well, they got to hype the college game. So you got to hype the best players. They're typically going to be freshmen now. Now you have Denzel, like for example this year, Denzel Valentine. You have Chris Dunn and others, but they're right up there with Ben Simmons in the discussion. But the fact is, younger, sexier, and what's fresher, what's newer. So Denzel's been around a while. It's an acquired taste. Some people are going to prefer that, but to get that pop on television and in the media, the freshmen, they seem to be the attractive target for that.
That makes sense. Well, appreciate your time, Jerry. Thanks for visiting with us, and thanks for your insight.
All right, Ronnie. Enjoyed it, man.